Sekiro: Shadows Die Twice is FromSoft's 2019 foray into the Sengoku period of Japan. Directed by Hayataka Miyazaki and Kuzuro Hamatani, is our second installment into this series and the first FromSoft game that I have completed, so it holds a special place in my heart. This entry of FromSoft's work takes a slightly different approach to combat than that of the other Souls titles, as well as its take on some of mechanics possibly being a testing ground for future works such as Elden Ring. Quickly need to touch on some nuts and bolts before we go any further. Due to the recommendation of one of the commenters, Just a Jag from the Deadbolt video, there will be a slight rebranding from tutorial into introduction, purely to clarify what I am aiming for. So thank you for seeing what I was trying to do in my head and not quite communicating clearly. But with that out of the way, let's find out. Does Sekiro's intro make the cut? Starting the game, we get an intro cinematic explaining how the world we are in came to be. The Ashina's rise to power, a young, starving wolf cub found on a battlefield by a wise owl, and trained in the ways of the shinobi before being given our master and a reminder of the code we follow.
Listen, Wolf, you must never forget the shinobi code. As your father, my word is absolute. Your master's is a close second. As of today, he is your master. Defend him with your life. If he is taken, bring him back at any cost. You understand me, don't you, Wolf?
Before transitioning to our current place in the world, the bottom of a well in the corner of a castle estate, with our duties failed. In the cold mountain landscapes, we see a woman with a red umbrella drop us a note, and here our tale begins, as we arise from our stupor to grab the note and find our master.
Shinobi, open your eyes for the sake of your master.
Here we get our first piece of information, how to move. As this is a FromSoft game, I will be using my Xbox controller for my sanity. Left joystick is moved in a certain direction, while looking around is the right. Walking up to the letter dropped on the ground, we are prompted to pick it up using the X button to interact with objects. Reading the note, we are given our task to head to the Moonview Tower, where our destiny awaits. Along with this task, we, the player, are given the name of our character. To the back of the well, we find a sheer wall that we can't get up, introducing us to an area we will have to circle back to once we get some more tools in our disposal. Through this game, there are only 2 additional tools that help with further exploration, those while being the grappling hook and the Mibu water breathing technique, only one of which will come up later down the line. As we head towards the exit, we come across a wall, which we deftly jump over by tapping A. Something of a first in a FromSoft game, as opposed to the convoluted way you would have to run, then jump, in previous titles. Continuing our path, we now come across a slightly taller wall, about double our height, teaching us about the wall jump. Another massive part of the exploration within this game to expand the amount of areas that can be accessed. Clambering out of the well, we look around. This little outcropping leads to nothing major being discovered in the back, pushing us towards the cliff's edge, where we find a ledge with scratches on it, signaling that we are able to interact with it. Tapping X, we shuffle along and peek beyond the edge, seeing a smattering of Ashina soldiers. Here, we learn one of the shinobi's most important tools, stealth. Crouching in the tall grass by pushing down the left stick, we see his awareness triangle lower, and we can eavesdrop on them talking about us by pressing the down button on the 4-directional pad under the left joystick.
That shinobi at the bottom of the well. We didn't shackle him, restrain him, nothing. That doesn't worry anybody?
Not at all. Not only is he unarmed, he has completely lost his will to live. Nothing but a coward. Unworthy of our concern.
As we continue onwards, we slip under the floorboards of a building, once again showing us some infiltration and traversal methods we will be using going forward. Here we can eavesdrop on some soldiers' conversations from under the floorboards.
The moonlight shines strongly on the Moonview Tower tonight. The Divine Heir is probably using the light for his reading again.
Probably, but imprisoning a mere child. I feel sorry for the boy.
Agreed. But I'm sure Lord Genichiro has his reasons.
And again, do the same just past this building, and learn about a hole in the Moonview Tower's wall on the cliffside facing edge, or entry point.
The Moonview Tower door. You check that it's locked, right? It's certainly locked, but nobody fixed that hole in the wall. That? Don't worry about it. The hole faces the edge of a cliff. No one could pass through it.
Heading down again, we see that yellowish-white scratching on the edge, letting us know that we can interact with that ledge. In this case, hanging off of the edge and shimmying along yet again, opening yet another way of traversal. Here we have 2 additional prompts: B to drop down, in this case to our death, and X to mantle on top of whatever is directly in front of us. Heading forward, we get a quick combination of all the skills we have learned unto this point: jumping, ledge grabs, shimmying, and mantling. Heading inside the tower, we trigger a cutscene where we finally meet our young lord, and gain our weapon, Kusabimaru, which, as far as I can tell, can be translated to bond. Again, as Japanese is not a language I am familiar with, please correct me in the comments.
You did well to come here. It's been too long, Wolf.
I've come to free you, my lord.
Well then. Raise your head. Kusabimaru, your sword. My shinobi. In accordance with the bond of lord and retainer, you will pledge your life in my service.
As you command.
Looking around upstairs, we are rewarded for exploring some medicinal pellets. Heading back down, we are given this game's Estus flask, the healing gourd. Kuro asks us about an event neither player nor Wolf remembers, before moving on to something a little more pressing.
Loyal Wolf, I see you are wounded. I have something that may help. It is a special gourd of medicinal waters. Use it to heal your wounds.
My lord.
Now then, were you gravely injured? Afterward?
After what?
Do you not remember that night?
I do not.
No. We'll talk about it later. Right now, we must escape Ashina Castle.
As you say.
There's a secret passage beneath the moat bridge that will take us out of the castle. Lord Ishin told me about it once. I ask you to find that secret passage. Once you find it, signal me with a reed whistle. You know, like you used to long ago. I will join you as soon as I hear it.
Being told to signal him with a reed whistle, we are now asked if we have something to give him. That being Kuro's charm, this game's easy mode, where if you don't have it, blocking gives you chip damage, unless you are able to perfectly parry each strike, along with a few other effects, like enemies having more health, posture, and others. So given the nature of this recording session, I'm keeping the charm, as that's not something I want to focus on in the back of my mind while getting footage.
That is why I ask you to keep it in your possession.
I see. I will keep it for a while longer.
Yes, please do so. Knowing that you possess it is a comfort.
Going through the menu and equipping the items to our hotbar, the 4-directional thingy below your left stick is how you operate. The bar going left and right, moving it with those buttons, and up to use the selected item. Opening the door, we go forward to complete our task, and with it, a new set of instructions is given to us. Here, we are given the basics of probably the best aspect of this game, the combat. While it has less build potential than your average Dark Souls game, that has made it so that they can refine the combat that they want you to engage with, down to an exact science. The main addition is the focus on deathblow, posture, and parries. While they existed in some form through other games, they were not focused on nearly to this extent. Your goal in combat is more often than not to parry and chip away at their health, and by extent posture, so they can be deathblowed, ending the fight instantly. Right bumper is a simple strike with your sword, while holding it does a thrust attack. Left is parry and block, and holding it can quickly recover your posture, a necessity in some fights. As you head up to the soldier facing away from you, you can instantly get a death blow on him, teaching us that when possible, stealth is almost always the most efficient way for us to approach a fight. After all, we are shinobi, not a samurai or a knight, and such a head-on approach should be left for them. With a well-timed parry, most simple foes can be brought low by 1 or 2 strikes before triggering their death blow. Continuing to slaughter our way through the Ashina troops, we come across our first mini-boss of sorts, leader Shigenori Yamauchi. The fight goes roughly the same: parry, counter-strike, strike, parry again. And then we land our first death blow on him. Doing so, we see one of the 2 red counters in the upper left get snuffed out. The second phase goes the same as the first. And with his death, we gain some more healing pellets. Trying the main door leading from Ashina Reservoir to the castle and abandoned dungeon, we find it locked, and so have to find another way, heading to the right. We get a fistful of ash, a decent utility item that can give you some breathing room if you throw it in someone's face. Moving along, we jump onto the supports of a bridge, and here we can once again listen to some soldiers and learn more about the situation we find ourselves in.
You know that secret passage at the bottom of the moat, under the bridge? We just got orders to guard it. Security's getting tight. War will be upon us very soon.
They've been ordered to guard the very door we are trying to bring Lord Kuro through. We will have to hurry before they reach it. Under the bridge, we find an assassin, a little straw-hatted creature, and easily my least favorite enemy in this whole game. This one falls easily enough, and we continue on our way, dropping down. The only thing of note, some more pellets, and a few lizards down in the ditch part. Calling Kuro over triggers a cutscene where we head through the door.
Wolf, you found it. Now let us leave this place.
Yes, my lord.
To think that this is the only way, to run from the fated bloodline, is the only answer.
Talking with Kuro, we get a bit of insight into his thoughts on our situation and our absolute obedience to him.
Or perhaps we should hide somewhere. What do you think?
Whatever you desire,
Whatever I desire? That's the wolf I know.
my lord.
Oh, nothing. I was just reminiscing. Onward then.
Heading up the stairs, we find someone waiting for us, Lord Genichiro. The following fight is purely there to put a goal for the player to one day reach. A quick clash for new players as they get their arm removed, but for returning players, this can be a test of skill, to ask, do I still have the skill needed for this game within me? And if you do manage to beat him, you get treated to a different cutscene, where a blade from one of his nightjar attendants distracts us, giving him the opening to cut off our arm. One small detail I enjoy about this scene is you can see Sekiro miss the hilt of his blade, assumedly from lack of practice, before fully grasping it and stepping forward to face his foe.
Thank you.
Leave this to me.
Waking up, we see a one-armed man carving a statue. We also seem to have been put under a welcome mat. Getting our prosthetic and talking to the one-armed sculptor, we learn more about our situation and how we got here.
So you're awake. Looks like death is not your fate, just yet.
We get the location of our master, and seemingly the reason we were able to survive bleeding out in that flower field, while being given our name once more, and the title of the game, Sekiro,
What do you call
or
yourself?
One-Armed Wolf.
Your eyes, the eyes of a wolf who has failed in his duties. Or so it seems to me.
That is not your concern.
Spoken like a true shinobi. I must carve the Buddha. You do what you will.
My left arm. What did you do to me?
That is what I call the shinobi prosthetic. A fitting fang for a one-armed wolf. Useless when it comes to carving Buddha, though. You can have it.
In the corner, we see a kind-faced Buddha, markedly different than the mountain of half-finished, broken, and cruel-faced ones being carved by our host.
You catch on quick. If you bring me shinobi tools, I'll find a way to fit them to the shinobi prosthetic. Then you'll come to appreciate its worth. I've said too much. Oh no, you're quite the strange one. Yet other peculiar visitors have come to this temple. There's one in the clearing to the right of the gate leading off the temple grounds. Two strangers in strange circumstances. You two might get along.
Stepping outside into the courtyard, we see a statue, which, when meditated at, brings up a menu. Much like the gourds this game's Estus, so too are these our game's bonfires. Places of rest, recovery, leveling up, and fast travel. Something else that popped up is the Shinobi Remnants system. Something that I have rarely, if ever, interacted with, as there is no messages to give each other of fingers and holes, or chests of great quality ahead. but as it exists, I do feel it is worth mentioning. Heading up to the right, we find a warrior seemingly waiting for something, though what we will soon learn.
Never seen you before. Your name? Won't tell me. But you do have the look of a skilled shinobi. A shinobi. Or perhaps... Sir, please heed my humble request. Face me in battle.
After a brief exchange of both words and blades, we learn that he cannot die, and as such, offers to help train us and hone our skills. He is a wonderful refresher for combat if you haven't played in a while, and want some risk-free brushing up, or are unfamiliar with how to properly interact with the combat system, and want someone to bring you up to speed.
I just am. How about you? What brings you to a rundown temple like this? Seems you have a lot on your mind. Say, why don't you use me for some sword practice? Might come in handy for whatever your mission is. A warm body that can't die might prove useful to you. I volunteer mine, and this temple attracts those with nowhere else to go. I certainly fit that description, and I suppose that's why.
We are informed of the offering box, which he say has things appear in it from time to time, though I have only had one instance of that happening in my entire set of run-throughs of this game. Off to the left, we have a broken bridge that does little in the way of slowing us down, given a feature of our shinobi fang, the grappling hook. Anytime you see a green circle somewhere, that means you can grapple up to that point. A green triangle means you can use that as a grappling point to fling yourself further in that direction, using it as a lever of sorts. Heading onto the ledge, we find ourselves in the Ashina outskirts. In the distance, we see Ashina Castle, standing proud against the clouded morning sky on the mountaintops. Heading down the paths, we learn about dropping onto people to surprise and kill them, how to loot, and a bit more of crowd control when dealing with multiple enemies and stalking them across terrain. Here, we come across our first of the most dreaded enemy in any and all Soulsborne titles, dog-adjacent creatures. This iteration isn't particularly bad once you learn to bait out and parry their leap attacks, which you can take them down in a single strike after, but they still are a mild nuisance in packs. On top of the cliff, we have one of the many oversized roosters we will be facing. Easy enough if you get the drop on, or can bum rush them, but otherwise, they're quite the headache, seeming to throw you into a set of stun locking. Above the dogs, we have an idol, and an entry point to a gatehouse of sorts. Inside, being our first shinobi prosthetic, the shuriken wheel, which we can pick up from a fallen Nightjar warrior. Heading back to the temple, we get the wheel fitted into our arm, which will be useful for the next mini-boss we run into. But before that, there's a new face at the temple. Emma, a healer who informs us,
You truly returned from the dead. The power of the dragon's blood. I never thought I'd see it with my own eyes.
Who are you?
My name is Emma. I am a doctor serving a certain master.
What master?
Forgive me, but for his safety, I cannot reveal his identity. However, my master gave explicit orders to assist you in any way I can. I'm not telling you to trust me. However, I must fulfill my master's orders. The gourd of medicinal water you possess, that was originally a creation of mine. I am a doctor, and I will assist you in that capacity.
and this is thanks to the dragon's blood,
You made
a gift of sorts from
Yes.
Lord Kuro.
It was intended
Another
for
thing we
Lord
learn
Kuro,
is that
but it
she
seems he
made the
entrusted
gourd
it
that
to
has
you.
been healing us
I'm
when we
sure
get
you may
injured.
have noticed, but the medicinal waters in this gourd
Heading inside,
forth
we get
on
the
their
prosthetic attached, learning a little more about its purpose, maybe a few hints about its creation, and some mention of things that might be relevant to the sculptor's past, along with prosthetics that we might be able to find out in the wild. But that can wait for now.
Fitting more devices,
means more ways to slay your enemies. If there's someone that needs killing, there's a proper way to kill them. That's all there is to it.
Seems you know this prosthetic very well.
I should calm myself. The more I speak of bloodshed, the more demonic my sculptures will become. Give it ear. I'll fit that tool for you.
Heading back to the furthest idol we found, we head up and around to reach the top of another gate, our prey below us. One of the many general types we can find around the land. Dropping down, we learn something mentioned before. Stealth is a shinobi's greatest tool, and less straightforward approaches are our bread and butter, with the easiest and quickest path to win a fight being the best. After all, we have our master to protect and save, and we are alone. The following fight is a good introduction to the flow of a more serious bout. Parrying, striking, recovering, dodging out of the way from grabs, stomping on his head when he tries to sweep us. Here, the prosthetic starts to earn its keep. Occasionally, he'll try to lower his posture meter by doing a sort of glowing meditation, which he can be knocked out of by a simple throwing star to the face with a light tap of your right trigger. Felling him grants us a prayer bead, part of a larger necklace that helps us improve our health and posture, almost essential for beating this game without ripping your hair out in frustration. From here, most of the important pieces have been covered in my opinion. You have a mix of enemies that require different ways of engagement, the importance of exploration to gain more tools and consumables to use on our journey, and our resurrection, where we can whittle them down, die, be reborn again, and continue fighting them, even after we should have died, which will be greatly of use with more serious boss fights. Something that I ended up not needing to deal with, partially due to my oversight in recording and overconfidence with myself. The idol statues work as a respawn point. We can die twice, before being sent back to an idol for revivification. Upon being revived, we end up spreading something called dragon rot, which, as far as I can figure, is a degenerative disease that slowly kills the afflicted by forcibly having their life drained to help revive the person who is blessed by the dragon's blood. But I could easily be wrong, as it has been a while since I watched Avati's video on the subject. Upon death, the price of revival for us seems to be the loss of half of whatever level we were working on, but not the loss of any levels we have gained, and half of our gold. In the beginning, it might not seem that much of a cost, but after you've been farming gold to buy spirit confetti for a few hours, that half really hurts. With the outline set up, let's go to our metrics. Does this make the cut for a good intro? In my opinion, I feel the controls were demonstrated very well. Everything is fairly straightforward. There aren't really any mechanics that go unexplained. All controls have a little pop-up that admittedly might have caused me to die a few times at Chained Ogre over my playthroughs, but that's a different issue altogether, a personal one. Beyond that, the controls are fairly intuitive and easy to pull off in stressful situations, which can result in an almost flow state when you enter a boss fight and it just clicks inside your mind. As someone who greatly enjoys snowy mountains as a setting, the cold mountain tops with a light dusting of snow across everything really tickles that part of my brain. Seeing Sekiros' breath as you stand there, the snow-covered treetops as you make your way along, the lack of messages from multiplayer add a feeling of being a lone shinobi up against an entire army, adding to a different atmosphere than that of other games within FromSoft's other titles. The game strikes an interesting place of historical fantasy, with the later areas, namely Fountainhead Palace, leading more into the fantastical elements, where in the early stages, all of it is fairly grounded in the Sengoku period, with the armors, weapons, all being fairly accurate to the time period from what I'm aware. Even the matchlock rifles, introduced by the Portuguese during their trading, really adding to this effect. The music, written by Yuka Kitamura, once again really sells that feeling of loneliness when needed, as you're exploring the lands, the sense of wonder upon coming across such fantastical places, as well as the bombastic and powerful tracks when you're in a fight. Overall, I think the atmosphere is sold very well. As simple as rescuing our master from his captor before the shift towards the end of the story is, I believe it is shown very well. We get our interaction with Lord Genichiro to put a face on our enemy that we are chasing. The mention of dragon blood and dragon rot if you die within the section I cordoned off as the intro throws that bit out there as a further detail that can be explored down the road, leading to the thought of maybe it is worth severing it from this world. And then we have the sculptor. We get thrown an offhanded comment on how in the Buddha he can only see rage and flames, with us later learning his arm was severed to prevent him from becoming Shura by Ishin, foreshadowing the demon of hatred fight and who actually was inside, which became one of my favorites for how different it is compared to the rest of the fights in this game. And so, I think the story is set up well enough for where it goes, little seedlings of others to sprout up, like Shura and Emma's place in the world, along with her mysterious master, who she can't speak the name of to protect him, but was ordered to help us for some strange reason. Once again, I believe this was done well enough. For all it changes in the Souls formula, the bones cannot completely be altered, with death being punishing, teaching perseverance, persistence, and skill. But I feel the most interesting quirk is that which gets parroted almost to the point of simulacrum, the whole mentality of get good. Well, often seen as almost a taunt for new players who just don't get the game or aren't a good enough level. This game truly requires you to get good. The only way you will reasonably beat this game is if you take a step back from treating it like any other game, where you can farm levels, change your build, if you aren't completely able to beat the enemy in front of you. But in Sekiro, that doesn't exist. It is just you, your sword, and your enemy. Once you get to that moment where the game clicks, it becomes almost easy. But you have to meet the game on its terms. You need to get good. It is a game of skill above all else, even if that skill might just be a mix between Guitar Hero and other rhythm games. And to my mind, that makes it the most divisive Souls game, but I feel that is a topic for another time, and that alone I feel makes it quirky enough. In my recording of footage, I went through the General Nomori Karawada, and within that segment, it took about an hour, which includes cutscenes, as well as making sure I did not miss any extra dialogue or tidbits to record. So, I would estimate that a normal player's run-through would take around 30 to 40 minutes, if they were really pushing it. Significantly longer than the Deadbolt runs, but not anything that I feel drags on for far too long, as a good deal of it is getting the player either back into or taking their first dive into the mindset needed for the game. And in doing so, I believe that that is time well spent. Looking through the criteria, it seems we've ended up around a low 5 out of 5. Now that doesn't mean it's perfect, but it does mean that it demonstrates everything to an acceptable degree, in my opinion, where I don't feel the need to comment on anything in particular when talking about it casually. If I was really pushed, I could find some aspects that I could poke on, but if you disagree with this, please do let me know down below. Sekiro celebrated its 5th year as of my finishing this script on March 22nd, 2024 at 3:45 p.m. So, I couldn't have planned that better if I tried. My hope is to get this out in March, but we'll see how that goes with editing and recording of other bits and bobs when this finally releases. So, my name is Sven. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, this is Elven Prince, signing out.